Parks and Rec. There were two packets two submissions, candidacy. Is there just one vacancy, or do we have two vacancies?
There is one vacancy.
One vacancy?
And potentially another one.
And potentially another one. Now, traditionally, we have nominated both candidates, or all candidates, and then as we come back to it, then we would decide on who would be maybe the primary and the alternate, or
I believe they're both with us this evening.
They're both with us, and well, I think it would be great to have you just say hi and who you know, what's your, a little bit about yourself.
You can come up. Come on up.
This is broadcast, and I don't think they have a great view of the seats at the
Or
back.
more importantly, the microphone picks you up.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
For
This is very unexpected. Well, I'm Megan Curran, born and raised in Middlebury. I have two little boys with my husband, Matthew Curran. He took a recent job position at Middlebury College. He is now Director of Business Services. And my two small boys keep me very busy. One's 3 and one's 5. And I was a stay-at-home mom for 4 years, and as of this past October, I just took a job at Middlebury College doing academic coordinator work. That's me in a nutshell.
Nice.
Great.
I think it's great that they both are Megans.
Yeah.
It's funny, they spell it the same way, too. So Megan Mayo?
Hi, I'm Megan Mayo. I also grew up in Addison County. I have used the Park and Rec's kind of facilities and resources a lot. I have an adult daughter, and so while she was growing up, she used it. And now I work at the counseling service, and with the students I support, we love all the resources available. And so now that my daughter's grown up and I have some extra time, I really wanted to give back to the community, so I thought this might be a good opportunity.
Great. This is exciting after, to get two really good candidates, because there is a lot going on with our rec services, and the department is deserving of the efforts of people like yourselves. So this is great.
So I'll move that we nominate both Megan Curran and Megan Mayo to fill the vacancy.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments from anybody? Okay. So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, and it was unanimous. So we're a little bit early, but I saw Jim was here, so let's move on to the Main Street Merchants Row Bridge Replacement Project.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jim.
Evening, Jim.
So our first order of business is to talk about a recommendation for an interim relocation of the Actor Transit Hub to South Pleasant Street. When I last reported to you, I let you know that VTrans had asked the town and Actor to vacate Merchants Row by Monday, June 12th in order to facilitate the driving of mini piles underneath the Merchants Row Bridge, which is expected to take place that week. I also reported that there were some differences of opinion about where Actor should be relocated for the next several weeks while a more permanent infrastructure is evaluated. And the two areas that were being looked at were Seymour Street down across from Fire and Ice, and South Pleasant Street, the western side, essentially in front of Cole's Flowers. So following that select board meeting, a group of stakeholders convened a meeting, and that included Bill Kernan and Dan Werner from DPW, Bill Cunningham and Jim Moulton from Actor, Laura is the board's liaison to Actor, Susan is the chair of the infrastructure committee, Kathleen, Jen Murray, Chief Hanley, and myself. So we had a full house of, I think, the right folks to look at the situation. And over the course of that meeting, we began to find common ground for the South Pleasant Street solution. And I summarized kind of results of that meeting and shared that with the group, got comments back. and then did some further logistics work actually on the site. And by that I mean I met with Dan and Bill, and with Bill Cunningham to look at the location that we were looking at and go over some of the logistics involved there. So second draft, which is the report that you see in front of you here. Again, everyone had a chance to kind of weigh in on it, and so you see the results. This recommendation is the result of input and feedback from everyone who attended that first meeting. So let's look at the details of what's being recommended. Again, this is an interim solution, so we're talking about from Monday, June 12th through the summer, and it's expected as we move into the fall there'll be an opportunity during the course of the summer to look more closely at the north end of South Pleasant Street, which has been the working plan for the last probably close to a year now. So what's been recommended is that Actor occupy the 6 parking spaces on the western side of South Pleasant Street that sit in front of Cole's Flowers and sit in front of a rental property at 140 South Pleasant Street that's owned by Tim Eaton. So as you can see here, it's marked out in red, showing those spaces. The Actor would have exclusive access to those 6 parking spaces. They would need to be striped and signed and otherwise identified as being set aside for Actor during Actor service hours. One of the things that Bill Cunningham and Bill Kernan did during that visit to South Pleasant Street was to test the ability of the ramp that gives access to those who are in wheelchairs to offload from the parking spaces. That was able to be done. It can go directly onto the sidewalk. And so that's important because it means that Actor can move out of the travel lane and just occupy the parking spaces rather than occupy the travel lane as is currently the case on Merchants Row here. That also gives the Select Board some flexibility in terms of a decision on whether South Pleasant Street goes one-way southbound. It essentially gives you the opportunity to keep two-way traffic in place during this interim location and to keep the two-way flow during the installation of the temporary bridges, which may be valuable to keep traffic flowing in town while we consider the longer-term solution here. So a fairly minimal impact in terms of time to set up. There is some cost involved, and we'll need to talk to V-Trans about their ability to help offset that initial cost of the relocation there. So some of the kind of ground rules that we talked about for this move was that Actor would be limited to those 6 spaces, meaning that they would not be permitted to park in front of 160 and 168 South Pleasant Street, which are the 2 residential properties toward the end of the street. Idling was a concern that was expressed at a previous public meeting, and so Actor has agreed not to idle their buses except in the case when they're lowering the ramp when the engines have to be on in order to enable that to happen. The shelter would not be moved down there, so there's no need to install that shelter. It does have to be off of Merchants Row in July for the temporary bridges work, so it would need to go into temporary storage, but it would not be moved down to South Pleasant Street. That solution, I think, addressed some of the concerns that Bill and Dan had from the Department of Public Works about safety and kind of operation on South Pleasant Street. And so I think I'm accurately summarizing the group's common ground that we found in asking the Select Board to consider this recommendation and the move to South Pleasant Street by Actor on or about June 12th.
Questions, comments of the board?
Yeah, quick question on the 6 parking spaces that you have. How many buses will fit there? Because sometimes on Merchants Row, I see like 3 Actor buses right behind each other. Would that spill over to the travel lane?
The measurements would allow for 4. Those 6 parking spaces would allow for 4
buses?
For about 4 buses.
They should get their parking head in.
And come in and move off of the travel lane into the area there. I should mention, too, that there is a planned sidewalk improvement project on South Pleasant Street, and that was one of DPW's concerns. That's going to take place late June, early July, and Actor is certainly willing to work around that with their schedule, as they have with other infrastructure projects downtown. There may also be a water line project at the north end of South Pleasant Street, same thing there. If that takes place, Actor's prepared to work around whatever Dan and Bill's schedule is for getting that work done.
That's wrapping two questions. One is, if you're going to remove the shelter and storage, why not put it there for use of people waiting in the rain?
It's not a good place to put the shelter right now with this, without encumbering the sidewalk. And I guess the idea was to not encourage, the gathering of people in what's essentially a residential neighborhood.
Because
There's
it is
also-
interim.
Yeah, no, I realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of, people waiting for a bus and raining and so on.
Yeah.
The other question is, what about the big bus that goes to Burlington? What will happen with that? That's not part of the Actor agreement, I realize, but.
No, but they will be moving to that. They'll be stopping in that area, too. There's two buses. There's one that runs down to Rutland and one that runs up to Burlington. So the schedules would have to be coordinated to use those 6 spaces. Again, an interim solution. I think, Actor's shown flexibility in their operational schedule here to make this work.
So I just want to recognize that the other thing that we know about this location is that it has greatest ease for scheduling, and that people can see it. It's not that far from Merchants Row. It's very walkable to the downtown. You have easy sidewalk structures for getting to the points that people normally try to access, like the library or the schools or the offices. So those are some of the advantages. And we have received a letter from the Planning Commission about considering Seymour Street, and we did look at that, and we had very lengthy discussion about that. I'm not sure to what extent we want to cover that again, because I do know Jen's here from the Planning Commission, but we recognize, that was investigated, as you mentioned, and it's still, in our estimation, preferable to stay on South Pleasant Street for the interim location.
Right. I think one of the main concerns that surfaced during our discussion came from Chief Shaw about the potential for Actor buses backing up at the intersection of Seymour Street and Main Street, and in a fire emergency, and the difficulty that it might be to work around the buses that are stacked up, at that intersection when they have to go fast and get into town there. So.
We also, in our meeting, had some concerns from DPW that, are valid about snow removal and things like that, but those will be addressed in the next phase.
Right.
So, and I really appreciate their thought put into that. Those, that we have to still address issues, but Actor was nice to talk about potentially helping with some of the snow removal as well, and I thought that was a good solution. So.
I should mention to the Select Board, too, that I did reach out to some of the property owners involved. I talked to John and Adrian Illick, who are 2 of the co-owners of Cole's Flowers, and they were fine with the arrangement as long as it was short-term and didn't interfere longer-term with their plans for that building. I talked to Tim Eaton, who is, as I mentioned, is the owner of 140 South Pleasant, the next property up affected. And his reaction was the same, fine, I'll be a good citizen as long as it's a short-term fix for us. If it's going to be longer than that, we'll have to talk. And I did speak with Brian Carteret, who is the owner of 160 South Pleasant Street, and he had been, I think, had some legitimate concerns when we met last February about the buses being in front of his residential property, which is only a few feet away from what at that time was proposed to be a stop. And I think, Brian, still has some concerns about that, but seemed willing to work with the town and with Actor, given that it was a short-term solution.
I just want to recognize the effort that the Planning Commission did make to look back at our town plan, you know, and just try to reflect that in the decision that we were making. It's been a hard decision. And I can see that it was tempting to consider that because we can imagine a future transit hub possibly in that location, but we really don't know yet, you know, where that transit hub's going to be. And we do know that we imagine more connectivity between the downtown and Exchange Street, and that's still emerging.
Finding common ground here was a challenge, but I think it was, it said something about the quality of the conversation, the quality of the people who were gathered at that table, that we were able to hammer out common ground and resolve any differences and come up with a workable plan to present to the Select Board.
Mary Jane?
I'm one of the property owners. I'm 161 South Pleasant Street. We have the yellow apartment building, which is the corner. And I was a little, I just got back from Florida and was a little taken back by the letter that I received, because Jim and I conversed a year ago via email with, I had multiple concerns about its location there and the fact that they were going to do one-way headed south. At the end of multiple conversations and notes that we passed back and forth, I was under the impression that it was going to go north and that the Actor buses would be parked in front of, opposite the monument. One of my main concerns is, it is so, if you're looking at continuing to have it south, I don't know if any of you go that way or not, but it is so dangerous pulling out onto the street to go across the bridge or to turn towards the high school. You're just honestly taking your life in your own hands. My daughter at this point has twins and is teaching them to drive and has told them they are never ever to go that way. I have very deep concerns about that. It's been a hazard ever since the bridge was in, as we all know, because of the way, the angle at which things were put in on the railings, and you need to just really nose out there. I would ask that if the board considers this particular one, that they also consider a safety factor of maybe making it short-term three-way stop, something that will keep the traffic moving. And because when people come around the rotary and they're headed over onto our side of the bridge, they're flying by at that point. And I know that because I mow the lawn once a week and I watch what's going on. So I just wanted to come here to express my concerns with your decision. I understand that a lot of factors went into it, and I realize that it's short-term, but I have difficulty understanding why, if you were looking at the opposite direction for long-term, is there a reason why you're not still looking at that direction for short-term if it worked out that way? And that's my question at this point. Because last I knew, it was going to go north, and the buses were going to be on the west side of the monument. And it seemed to be that's what worked the best. And now all of a sudden, because it's short term, you're reversing the direction. I just don't understand the why. And maybe someone can explain that to me that's on the committee.
Well, I can explain the thinking there. The why is because of we were caught out short with the emergency declaration due to the project was delayed for a year. And so there was plenty of time to investigate the north end of South Pleasant Street and to develop engineering plans for it, have the town's approval and so forth. That time all disappeared at the end of March when we were told that there was an emergency declaration by the state and the bridges were going to be replaced in several weeks. So that was the driver for why aren't we at the north end of South Pleasant Street? We told you last year we were going to be there. Mm-hmm. The other piece I'll mention too, because I know how dangerous that intersection can be if you're turning left, is that the Actor buses will only be allowed to turn right. And so they will not be making any left-hand turns onto Cross Street. So that's a small measure of safety protection there that I think that those buses will not be turning left at that intersection.
Jim, can you help me? I don't ever remember talking about that going one-way south.
One-way north.
Or one-way north, rather. I don't ever remember the reverse direction on that street.
No. It
We,
was-
the location has changed, but the direction of
The direction
traffic
hasn't
has not changed,
Yeah,
so
maybe
I guess I'm a little confused
I
on
may have
that.
misunderstood what you said then, because it was going to go to the north end of South Pleasant Street, right off Court Square,
Right.
and all of South Pleasant Street was going to run southbound.
Because in my emails to you and other things, I pointed out the same things that I'm pointing out to you today, that the natural flow of traffic is not to go south onto South Pleasant Street and get into that danger of having to turn left. If you've got all of the congestion coming out of the school, you go north, it doesn't stop anything, there's no danger. I'm really concerned, I don't understand. I don't understand why, I don't know, am I the only one that goes there and fears that I can't see when I pull out? Or when I start to pull out, all of a sudden it's like, go quick because there is a car coming that I couldn't see? But
No,
I
I'm just trying to clarify, because I don't remember ever actually discussing that
Right.
direction. Now, it doesn't mean that
doesn't
you're
mean
making some good points, some valid
Yeah.
points. I travel that street a lot, because I go to the high school
do
and coach a
too,
lot.
daily.
and-
You know, that intersection, yeah.
Can I ask you a question? I received the letter
Right.
this week, which had the wrong dates. Anyway, so I was a little concerned, because I really wanted to be at a lacrosse game up in South Burlington tonight. But anyways, I'm here instead. But you said that you spoke with Brian and you spoke with the other people. Had you had my email, or just, did you not want to try and contact me for any reason, or?
Oh, no, it was
Yeah.
just, they're with the temporary bridges work starting next week.
Right.
There's a
Mhm.
lot going on with
Right.
in my position here, and
Yeah.
so I reached out as I could to the folks who were most directly impacted there, and I apologize if I overlooked contacting you.
Because we have the largest lot of that entire street.
Yeah.
And could I ask a quick question? I'm concerned about, we have tenants, wondering the hours that the buses would be. Is that something maybe that you could get to me so that I can let them know what's going on?
Well, we have Actor right here.
Okay.
What's,
All right, so-
what does the schedule look like, guys?
Starts at 5:30 in the morning with one bus going to Rutland.
Mhm. That's the big one?
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Around 6:30, there's a couple more that will pull into the queue. It'll run till approximately 7:30 at night, Monday through Friday. Saturday is much more limited. This time of year, there's no buses on Sunday.
During the day, are there buses off and on throughout the entire day?
It's continuous. It's a pulse system where buses pull in, people offload, get onto another bus, and they go. And if it's working well, they're not parked there very long,
Mhm.
and they're on their way. But it is continuous, not as busy certain times of the day.
Mhm.
Commuter times more so, because there's a lot of commuters.
Morning, evening, yeah. Mhm. Okay.
There's a few more considerations that have come up tonight. I wonder if, we have an interim solution, but have we got the right
Direction.
direction and everything? Maybe can we, it might be good to have Jen's planning group actually tackle this over the next couple of months so that we have the right, what would be a timeline? Are you guys supportive of that?
Well, we in fact just had a very interesting meeting with Local Motion this afternoon where we were looking at critical crossroad intersections and requesting some help, so we can go back to that and look at our priorities and consider that intersection, which we should have included. Because you're right, Mary Jane, that's a very crazy intersection, and I bike it, so I'm making a left turn and then the right turn on Water Street every day, so I know what you're talking about. And I witness the confusion that people can have
The
there.
people that push the button that now flashes for them to walk across, people are not even stopping for them. So,
Well, I think you make a good point in that we've got an interim, but now we've got some time to work with the rest. And I think the question is, do we want to go for the one way now, or we've got the option to go 2 ways now, so we can keep it open and then work forward, I think is probably the best way. But I'm just making a suggestion. I think I saw some other hands up too.
John?
Jim was kind enough to call Adrian and myself a week or so ago, and we had this discussion. And as most people know, we do have a plan and town approval to redevelop the property, which is a little challenging given our current housing market, but that plan is still out there. So the discussion Jim and I had was, and notwithstanding safety concerns, because I'm not very intimately familiar with those, but just in terms of how it affects the 150 South Pleasant Street property, the thought was it would be short-term. Well, short-term isn't a time period. So what we would love to have is clarity about what short-term means. As far as we're concerned, you know, a week, a month, 3 months is no issue. But if it dragged on to 6 months or 9 months or a year, that's an issue. So I would love clarity between short-term and long-term. When would the short-term end and the long-term plan be implemented?
We can answer that, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the current plan right now would have, the interim solution would run into the early fall. If the plan is to move toward the north end of South Pleasant Street infrastructure and convert South Pleasant Street to one-way southbound, that's the engineering plans. The construction process leads us into September. So this is a 3-month, more or less, process. If the decision is to take some time out and evaluate more carefully what the options are, it could extend it another month, perhaps.
That's a good point, that the longer we take to evaluate it, the longer it will take to then plan it and execute those engineering plans. So we have to balance that out. If we're going to take more time to look at it, that would extend it for those people on the south end. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Jen?
And the permanent station is going to require a DRB review too, so don't forget to build that time into your schedule.
Okay.
The permanent location, or you mean the temporary?
The permanent.
The permanent one, yes.
Which, okay, that's a matter of nomenclature, because,
Okay, sorry.
No, I saw Jim. I was waiting to finish this.
Exactly.
Okay. Jim?
Now I'm going to challenge to remember what I was going to say.
Why don't you come up here and say it? Come up here and say it.
Well, I can speak loudly.
Okay.
So, just to let you know that the only thing we're waiting for at the moment to engage the design engineering firm is final approval from V-Trans, Joel Perigo and company. And I just got a message from a transit liaison that she is going to close that loop, hope to close that loop tomorrow. So assuming that they can approve our hiring of the firm, it should be just formality, but then we would be engaging the design and engineering firm to start that process of designing what the north and South Pleasant Street would look like, so that the review process can start. So just to give you a time frame to work that in.
So knowing that time is of the essence with this, Jen and I brainstormed this afternoon some way to get some public input, and this is what we came up just for discussion, keeping the timeline in mind. Having a working group of Public Works, Dan and Bill, planning, actor, and a traffic consultant, perhaps, look at the options, look at what we have before us now, and maybe present some other option. Taking those options to the Infrastructure Committee for review, and then back to the Select Board for a public hearing on those, public input. Working group goes back to the working group after the public hearing to refine the options, back to infrastructure for a recommendation to the board, with the goal of coming to the board optimistically the last meeting in June but realistically, the first meeting in July.
That sounds good. We have 2 infrastructure meetings planned in June anyway, so there's plenty of opportunity to, if we miss the one, then to hit the other one, so.
So can I ask a quick question?
I had a comment in here.
Yes.
The idea of South Pleasant goes back to the local, when we had the local project management team. And actually, I like the idea Kathleen suggested of a working group, because we actually saw several different potential solutions, each having pluses and minuses. We actually had discussed the idea of making South Pleasant a northbound. And while it is true, there is that quirkiness at Cross Street, which is necessary because of the height of the railing for pedestrians. We saw a greater problem in northbound, because you have effectively southbound Route 7, you have northbound Route 7 that goes in front of the inn and then does a 180-degree turn. And those both are through, and then you have the yield coming up off of Merchants, and then you have the stop sign from South Pleasant. So, and under current conditions, it can be a real problem, especially during the peak travel periods. But we saw it as a greater problem to start putting in the actor buses and other traffic. So the southbound was viewed as the lesser of 2 evils. Now the working group may in fact decide that it is the better of the 2 evils and it would be worth doing. But what I really appreciate is the fact that this group has come together with what is a good interim solution to at least get the buses out of the Merchants Row area and able to still serve the passengers in what seems to be a pretty safe spot. But we did see several different possible solutions. We were literally thinking of a 3-month solution, because that's originally what it was, and now it's for a 3-year. So I'd certainly be willing to give the benefit of the information and dialogue that we had during this working group, but I think this is a good direction to go.
Are there any other comments? Anybody who's wanted to say something in the audience who didn't? John?
I guess I'm still unclear how this interim solution is. I didn't get a sense if it was 3 months, 2 months.
Well, let's just kind of walk through this. If they move in June and the final recommendation comes to the Select Board in July, you've got engineering and construction, you're probably there till close to Thanksgiving, would be my guess. So, 5 months probably, realistically.
Is the 5 months that you're looking at, that's what it will take to do the work on the bridges?
No, five months if we are going to relook, since it's a longer-term solution versus 3 months, and there's been some good points on, traffic direction, location. The Planning Commission pointed out that we're only getting paid for a one-time relocation. If we could decide where we wanted it long-term, it would be there permanently. Right now, the location we picked was totally an interim, and if, who pays for it then to move to wherever it moves? So there's a lot of issues that are unresolved still, and if we're going to try to resolve those and have potentially a long-term solution, we may decide that we don't have a good long-term solution and we have to have a better interim solution, but I think it's probably worth trying if we're going to have the funding. And we have a number of considerations, certainly from the neighborhoods, from the various neighborhoods that have been looked at so far, that need to be reconciled. How can we best meet everybody's needs, the safety, the emergency services needs? I think to give the planning group, we're basically talking about giving them 5 weeks to just cram together and kind of come up with a better, make sure that we have the best solution or a better solution. But then we have to go, if we change, we got to go back to engineering I'm not sure we haven't spent any money on engineering yet anyway, so. But that's got to be engineered, and then it depends upon how much construction is necessary. Just having done projects realistically, you know, love to get it done in 3 months, but I just don't see it happening.
Can I ask a question? So when the local project management team considered Seminary Street, is that right?
Seymour
Street.
Sorry. I thought there was a big impact to Actor's bus schedule and meant a big change for them in scheduling and stuff. And I mean, I think there's a lot of, it's a complex issue, but I don't want to forget their business aspect of things either, because it's a very valuable service, and even though safety and traffic and snow removal and everything are also very important, I want to ensure that we do what we can to keep Actor as viable in providing that service for us. So, I just...
Yeah, no, I think those are valuable criteria that you're bringing up that ought to be all part of the consideration and the recommendation made. And
I just wanted to...
I think Jen's back there taking copious notes because she's now going to be charged with bringing us some recommendation. Okay, I think I appreciate everybody coming out. I know we're asking you to stomach a bitter pill for a short period. Hopefully we can make it as short as possible. But we do have to get Actor off from downtown in order to take care of the larger needs of the town to get those bridges safe and replaced. So with that, if there's no other comments, I would look for the pleasure of the board as far as the temporary relocation of Actor. The interim temporary.
Exactly. Do you want to say it? You look like you were about to say it.
I'll move that we endorse the proposed site plan and timeline for the interim location of Actor from Merchants Road to South Pleasant Street in front of Kohl's.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And can we also support the brainstorming?
Yep, I think, so now,
Okay.
we still have, then the next act would be board's pleasure on charging the planning commission, our town planner, with assembling a working group to validate and check all of our facts and figures on the Actor interim. Temporary, potentially long-term relocation position.
Can we have more words?
I know. Not verbose.
So I think Nick moved it, and I'll second.
Okay. Comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, and Jen, we're looking for no later than our first board meeting in July, if we could, please. I know that's a real crunch, but hopefully you can pick mostly full-time people who can dedicate quality time to this. But we do need to get some public testimony and stuff too, so if we put it out there early on, what we're working towards as far as timeline for hearings at the select board, so that all the neighbors can put it on their calendar and make sure they have an opportunity to participate. So,
Can I make a quick suggestion?
absolutely.
Obviously, from Nick's comment earlier, the local project management team already put a considerable time and effort into this. Can we make sure that we're not recreating the wheel in this, and we go back and look at what they already discussed and make a suggestion, if Nick's got time, since he has the history, that he, be a part of that?
Yeah, Nick, who was the keeper of the history? You've got it? Okay. You have it all? Okay. So Jen's got the study that was done. Okay, anything else?
Provide a narrative of it to help.
Jim, anything else on the bridges?
We can move from Actor over to the EA and then the de minimis So, but nothing else on.
No, we're done with Actor right now.
With Actor right now.
Thank you.
So I'm just alerting the folks behind me that we're done with Actor.
Yes, I know why everybody came.
Is it me?
And then there were two. Sorry, guys. Different sections.
Okay. So, moving right along. You all attended the environmental assessment last week. It's last week now, yes. And there was
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Almost.
Sorry.
Actually, it was the same day as the actor meeting,
It
so it was a
was.
red letter day.
That right.
And the day that my new grandson was born as well, so we had quite an eventful day. The environmental assessment is nearing the end of its public review period. We had talked briefly about the potential for the Select Board as a group adding a comment, and I felt that it was important for the Select Board to strongly endorse the idea of the state, Vermont Rail, and the town collaborating on a written emergency response plan in the event of a spill in the rail corridor that's been such a visible issue in town. So I have, with that idea in mind, I presented to you in the form of a letter to Rob Sikora, who is the environmental program manager at Federal Highway, a statement worded to that effect. So if you've had an opportunity to read it, then and to
Did everybody read that? It's in our packet. Maybe if they haven't read it yet, Jim, could you just? You did read it? Okay. Nick, did you remember that?
I did read it, yes.
Okay. This kind of is follow-up to a number of the questions that were posed at the hearing, and then our follow-up to those questions, wondering, believing that we had something, but we didn't feel like we had a fully integrated plan, and I think that it's a good point that was made at the hearing, and this is a great opportunity for us to make that a focal point of going forward into the future. And so Jim drafted this letter for the Select Board signature if we're in support of it.
I like that, but I also had another point that I was hoping that the board could consider too. So I'm not sure if people want to talk about just that first and mine later, or...
Well, quick census, are we in support of this particular point? Is there anybody who has an issue about it?
No.
Okay, why don't you go to your point then?
Okay.
Let's see if we want to add that in.
My concern was about noise levels. They had stated that the one area in Middle Seymour Street at night will exceed acceptable levels. If you recall, those houses are about 30 feet from the track. And the mitigation that was offered for that is adequate for if they're going to have moderate to elevated levels, but I didn't think it was adequate for exceeding those levels, and I really felt when you're exceeding something, it's into the harmful category, and that's more than just a matter of communicating or having best management practices. So for me, I would like to see a discussion with those affected residents that includes a timeline and explores stronger mitigation measures for them. I mean, if they need to be moved for a night or two, that offer those kind of things, that they shouldn't be left there when those levels are being exceeded.
That's a very good point.
So that was, to see what those discussions are. Maybe it's just for a couple hours or something like that, and they can go somewhere else for the evening. I don't know. And so what sort of time frame are we talking about? But I think it needs a discussion, and it should be supported by the board for a stronger mitigation for them, because it's the only place where those levels are in excessive levels.
Right.
So
Sorry, I'm still losing my voice.
Any comments on Susan's
Good point.
point?
Yeah, so would we work that in to?
Well, I think we would charge Jim to work that in, and then if we can all support that, then we would have to come by and get this letter signed. It needs to be in by the 26th.
At the end of the week.
Probably just add a sentence to this, I think.
Okay.
Is there anything else that anybody
Do you want my paper?
was looking for to include as a position of the select board? There was one thing that came up, but I think it came up well at the hearing, which was kind of a biological security and not introducing invasive species, making sure that they buy for mulch a good high-quality mulch versus junk mulch. I think that's already entered into the testimony, so.
Yep.
So you don't think another note needs to be made about that? Because
I think that was pointed out. I think that, they're required to respond to everything that came into the hearing. This particular point, I don't think did come at the hearing.
They mentioned that it didn't. They mentioned it themselves, but nobody really commented
But nobody
on it.
commented on it.
Which part?
The noise levels.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. I should say each of you is free to respond individually as well. And the point of this is to have a select board response, but through Friday, you're all free to respond as well. But let me incorporate this into this letter, and then give it to Kathleen tomorrow and get signatures.
We thought we'd be here for another hour. By then, you'd have it done.
Yeah, couldn't I?
That's harsh.
If I could just add in, Brian, when the letter is drafted, Kathleen could just email it to me, because my return flight is until Friday evening, so I'd like to authorize her to sign it for me, but I'd like to look at the letter first and then send an email approval.
Can do. Okay. Is there a motion for support of the letter with the inclusion of Susan's bullet on the noise mitigation?
So moved.
Second? Sorry, second?
Moved and seconded? And I guess we're going to leave you to draft the motion, Kathleen. Support of of Jim's letter. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. What else you got, Jim?
Got one more thing, and I apologize that it comes last minute here, but the state only informed Kathleen and me about it last night. The VTrans intends to make a de minimis finding about the impact of the project on the village green, and they need to do this in short order in concert with the Federal Highway Administration, and they have asked the select board, they need the select board to concur with their decision. So that lays it out. Let me back up and kind of unpack that for you and let you know what this is all about. The U.S. Department of Transportation Act of 1966 includes a Section 4F provision that requires all federal aid highway projects to demonstrate their impact on parks, on wildlife, and other resources. So in the case of the temporary bridges, now we're not talking about the larger project, but in the case of the temporary bridges, we're talking about the village green there. And VTrans intends to make a finding of de minimis, which means minimal impact of the project on the public park that is owned by the town of Middlebury. And they would like the select board to concur with that. So I'd like to walk over here and show you what those impacts are and some language that I've added to the letter, because some of them are still not quite settled yet. This is Merchants Row, the temporary bridge right here. And there are, with the rail line here, is Triangle Park and the upper side of the village green. There are three impacts to the village green that are planned for the temporary bridges that will disappear once the temporary bridges are gone and we've restored the village green. The first is right here, a section running from Merchants Row, Main Street intersection back toward the rail line. And this is a section of sidewalk that borders Triangle Park that will be partially removed in order to create a truck loading zone for the Battelle block. This came out of discussions with the stakeholders, and in particular, how are we going to have Cisco and some of the other large delivery trucks deliver to the Battelle block, because they can't get down or easily negotiate down into the lower lot, which is where they typically deliver. And so VHB's solution was to design a truck loading zone here, which would be signed or striped as reserved for truck loading. Okay, so that's impact number one. Impact number two is this area here, which is essentially where the actor shelter is right now, and the sidewalk will be repaved in order to channel water into the inlet that's close by there. So again, a temporary, through the duration of the temporary bridge's impact there, but you're losing some sidewalk here, or having some sidewalk repaved so that the water flows into the correct basin. And then the third piece of it is, with this yellow striping here, there's a pathway that runs from Court Square down through the park, and right now ends up right to the side of the shelter. Right, you can picture that. That's going to have to be stopped short of that point, because it's going to run right into the side of the bridge in there. And so the idea is to create a kind of a dog leg, so that pathway will come down, and then instead of running down this way toward the old shelter, it'll turn and it'll go over to the sidewalk over on the Village Green side of Merchants Row. So when the state looks at this and says these are really minimal short-term impacts on the park, designed to make the temporary bridges work best for the town, and that's how they've arrived at this de minimis funding they're finding. And they have, again, they're asking you to concur with their finding, and that's what's the gist of the letter. Now, my only concern here is that not all of this has been finalized yet, and so we don't know exactly, is this going to take the entire sidewalk, is this going to take part of the sidewalk, how much room do they need for the truck loading zone, what's going to be the direction of this pathway, relatively minor things, but I've added language in there that says that VTrans acknowledges that it will continue to work with the town to develop the fine-tuning of these impacts, so that it suggests that yes, you're concurring with their intent to have a de minimis finding, but you're also acknowledging that not all of the planned designs are final yet. And so that's the gist of the letter that's in front of you here. The state has asked that you move quickly on this, because it's wrapped up in their ability to move to a contract with Kubricki to start the temporary bridges construction in early June.
Can I?
Nick, were you able to hear most of that?
Yeah, I did actually.
You did?
Oh, good. Thanks.
Okay. Heather?
So this is the first I'm hearing of this truck loading, which I think is fine, other than my concerns about additional parking loss. And do we have an idea of how much more loss of parking this is going to result?
I think we're giving up.
How are we going to keep people from not parking there?
Well, I'll answer the first question first.
Okay.
We're going to lose 2 spaces. So fairly minimal impact, just because of the way the bridge kind of runs back, how it's sitting 2 feet above.
Okay.
And so the way that it runs back toward Main Street.
Because we were losing some spaces there anyway,
Yeah.
with the installation of the bridge.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's only an additional 2 more. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you.
And the other question was?
I was just concerned about keeping people from parking there,
Oh.
so it was available for the truck delivery.
It's striped.
Be striped. It's kind of like Actor, you're
Yeah, I know,
going to
that
stripe
doesn't-
it and sign it, and then are people still going to park there? I don't know.
Okay.
That gets, I think, to our larger issue of do we want to move forward with parking enforcement?
I think it may be something that may become more important with this change to our downtown.
I'm a proponent for it, but it's up to the
So
board.
can I ask another question?
Sure.
Is that okay? This the only pedestrian access over this bridge is over here, right?
Correct, there's a crosswalk, there, you just had your finger on the crosswalk there.
Here,
Yep, and
and
then
then
that,
there'll be one here.
yes.
So if this sidewalk goes away, it's really not that big of a deal because people can't get across the bridge there anyway.
That's correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm good. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I just want to understand the impact on St. Stephen's, maybe, because
That's the other side of the
are
green.
people going to miss that path because they're used to coming?
Well, I think,
That way?
if you
Or they're
walk,
not
if you
going?
enter the back way to St. Stephen's, you're walking across grass
Grass,
to
yeah.
get to their walkway
Mhm.
now anyhow, so there's no direct pathway to St.
Yeah,
Stephen's.
I'm pretty sure it's okay. I'm just running it through my filter for
Yeah,
them.
sure, understood.
That's what
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this actually goes back to the, a little bit, I hate to go back on the South Pleasant, but some of the things we evaluated with the local project management team was the possibility of some diagonal stripe parking up on sections of South Pleasant for the north end. And so, as Jen and her group are looking at options, that's one of the things to think about. Is there's a possibility to pick up a few extra parking spaces up there to overcome the loss down by the bell block.
So I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the letter that, for the concurrence with finding of de minimis impacts for the Middlebury Emergency Bridge Replacement Project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any final comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, Jim.
Brian, I would like to, again, in the interest of time, authorize Kathleen to sign it for me.
Okay. All right. So, any final questions of Jim, or I think you're done, or did you have one, you had one more thing, or? No, okay, you had that,
I'm looking expectantly to see if there are any
Yeah.
further
Let me go,
questions.
let me
No,
go.
we're gonna let you go right, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathleen, are you gonna walk us through the, I want a pen.
Jim is going to email it to me. So last night I met with a group of stakeholders, including representatives from the Bethel trustees, the Means Woods people, and the Addison County Bike Club, and town planner Jen Murray, to talk about this opportunity before us to apply for planning funds for the town forest. And what we'd like to do is to submit a grant application for recreation and natural resources planning for the Battelle Woods, Chipman Hill, and Mean Woods, if that is eligible. And so you have in your packet a letter drafted by Asher Nelson, who identified this opportunity for us. So we're looking for your support to both sign the letter and to authorize me to sign the grant application for it. It's a pretty straightforward application. The grant award is not in the form of cash. It's in the form of technical assistance, and the town's match is in kind with staff time and our volunteer time.
Sounds like a good opportunity for us if we can get it.
I think it's great.
I'll move that. We approve the letter.
The application for technical assistance.
Application for technical assistance.
Sorry.
Under the Vermont
So I'll
Urban
second, sorry.
Community Forestry Program.
We're all signing papers and
Move-
not paying attention.
Moved and say, I know, I need to do a better job as the chair to keep everybody in order
I'll
here.
move that we endorse an application for technical assistance under the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program.
I cannot multitask tonight, so that's duly
Moved and
noted.
seconded. So all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Right?
Opposed? And we have an abstention out in the hallway. I'll get her vote later.
Good job.
What's that?
I said, since Kathleen did so well in sign for me, if I could ask her to sign this one for me. I think she's growing. I can't see if she's looking rolling her eyes saying, "Oh, not yet."
No,
I wouldn't do that.
she's got us covered. So,
I know that.
okay, Vermont Gas Systems request for easement is moved to June 13th per the agenda that we approved. So that takes us to Kevin. Kevin, I know you've been waiting.
I always learn interesting things at the select board meetings, so it's a pleasure to get to wait and listen. Our library building committee felt that on their last meeting at the 11th, they had substantially completed the work that they had been assigned to do in their charge, which was to come up with a plan, first determine if the library needed additional space or renovation, and then develop a preliminary plan and a cost estimate. And based on their work with the architects that we hired, GBA Architecture, they have substantially completed their work. And so we're looking to move on to the next phase. The final report isn't out yet. We're still doing some final touches, but we're looking to move on to the next phase of that project, which is doing a fundraising feasibility study and hiring a consultant to look at how much money we could raise from private donors. So last year, you'll remember that we put in our budget pipeline $20,000, and that was approved by the select board for this feasibility study. So we already have funding of $20,000 for it. Any additional funds the library trustees agreed to cover out of funds that they've been saving from donations. So the plan would be to put out an RFP that I think was a part of the board's committee, or the board's packet, and I'm come before you to ask for your approval to release this RFP for potential consultants.
Questions? Comments?
Straightforward.
The library board looked at it and already approved it at their
Guys have
last
done
board
all your
meeting.
work, yeah, So I'll make the motion to endorse the request from the Ilsley Library Board of Trustees to submit an RFP for a capital campaign feasibility study for renovation and expansion of the library.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So any final comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Kevin, good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Susan.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick report on a couple items. For the infrastructure meeting, we had a meeting on May 11th and then another one on May 17th, and I was just going to do a quick little update on some of the projects. With the the water meter installations that we were approved last year, Dan said that they have installed 1,355 meters so far and still need to install 332 more. 30 of these are in water meter pits, which don't need appointments, but they're working to get the rest of them scheduled, but every one of those last ones have been contacted so far. Wanted to talk about there's been a preliminary facilities management look at Ilsley Library, and with Judith Harris and Dan and Kevin, broke down everything into spreadsheets for maintenance needs, capital needs, and code violations. They've been identifying what needs to get fixed right away, what things are more long-term, and really it's going to be a model used for future buildings and what we're doing. So we sort of got the preliminary study, gave some good feedback, and they'll come back with us when we start doing capital budget planning. I'm trying to think what else. There was also, that's a really good opportunity to, Judith saw, to coordinate with the Energy Committee and to take a look at doing energy audits and hazardous material audits on some of the oldest buildings that we have, which I thought was a great tie-in between the two committees. And what else did I want to say? Highlight. We had previously approved a well monitoring sites project, but we only got one bid back, and it was about $20,000 to $30,000 over the anticipated price. And the committee decided to check with the state and see what sort of time frame we have, and maybe we can rebid it at a more user-friendly time and try and get more bids that are a little more competitive. And other than that, trying to think. Oh, and the other was the Marble Works path. We had had a request for taking a look and sort of refreshing the path. There are some spots that needed to be patched in the path going down to the pedestrian bridge from the Marble Works Park. And based on what would be done with the train bridges project, because there's going to be an access road that goes on the alongside of that for 120 feet, is it? Approximately. So we're sort of looking at the timing of that, of do we need to patch pave temporarily and then they'll do the complete work, or should we do a little bit more? So that's sort of waiting for some more information as to when the early work package number 2 engineering is going to get done. So looking at John, did you get all that? You're the important one I'm talking to, I guess, right now. Just getting the word out to everybody. So I'm not sure if people had questions. There's a lot more projects that we need some information on, but I'm not sure if anyone had any questions about the smaller projects that I just talked about.
Yes.
Yes, excellent.
Just clarification. So the Ilsley Library building study?
Mm-hmm.
So is it just using the information that had already been gathered about the condition of the building as a model for how to do the process of evaluating the building? It's not like you have to start again because it's already been done.
Using a lot of information that was already put together.
Okay.
Go for it, Dan.
Understand that.
He can clarify that a little bit.
So Junie and I took the report that was done by a subcontractor to the architect.
Okay.
And then we met with Kevin, and then also with a couple contractors and HVAC, ventilation, and an electrical contractor, to kind of sort through things on that report and try to determine what made sense, what was priority, what could happen now, what should maybe wait if there isn't even a big project. So we kind of dug into that report.
Okay, because we might need to do something now anyway, because
Right.
it will be a while before we get the new building.
It was a good opportunity to start with a building that had a lot of information about it already.
Expansion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. And then the footpath.
Yes.
So I'm not clear about that one.
Okay.
So I don't understand how it ties in with the rail bridge. Project.
Part of their access to get down into the lower part by the river to do the drainage system, they're going to need to use that path to get their heavy equipment down.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it was an opportunity to look at do we need to do a full workup and repaving of that, or do we need to just patch it for right now, knowing that a lot of heavy equipment is going to go through, and then that V-Trans will be redoing that path at the end of it.
Okay, I got it now. Okay.
And if I could just add quickly.
Yes, please.
So, given the temporary bridge and the, bridge project, we anticipated more foot traffic on that path, and wanted to make sure it was in good condition, and that's why it kind of moved that up in the priority, that we maintain, that we make sure that that's in the best condition possible in anticipation of it being a well-used pedestrian access during the bridge project.
Correct. Thanks, Heather. So also one of the things that the committee looked at was putting terms of service on our membership. So we are one of the few committees that do not have term limits. Mm-hmm. And so we looked at it, and I put it in your packet what the board approved for recommendation, kind of broke it down, and Heather and I are appointed yearly. Everyone else, I tried to stagger them so people would go off at different times. And Ryan got the short straw, and he coincidentally has given his notice too. So, and that wasn't the reason why. I just wanted to clarify that. So I'm hoping that the board will support that for us going forward and gives us a sort of a better way to have people come and go on the committee and have ending times.
3-year terms, can they be reappointed a second time?
Mm-hmm.
Or so
Yeah, no limits on that.
no
but-
limits, but okay.
Yeah, but just having an ending and then rotating off if they want to.
That was the question I had. I mean, in other words, you can reappoint someone after the...
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think, good practice. I support that. Do you need a formal motion, or you just want our general?
I don't know. What do you think,
Support.
Kathleen? Did we need a formal one?
I think that would be a good
I think that would be
step.
great. Do you want to do it
I'll
for me?
move that we limit the term to 3 years for infrastructure committee members appointed by the board,
Based on the recommendation, maybe?
based on the recommendation.
That would be great. I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the other thing is Ryan Emilio, who is one of our, he's been on far longer than I have, but I'm not sure how long he's been on the board, has given his notice. And Kathleen has prepared a letter of appreciation for Ryan for his many years of service. I told Ryan that I really appreciated his lively participation in our group. He always had good thoughts and was very good about engaging with all the topics that we brought up. So I just really appreciate his service and are hoping that the board can accept Ryan Emilio's resignation from the Infrastructure Committee and approve his letter of appreciation.
Heartily. You could do it.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept Ryan Emilio's resignation from the Infrastructure Committee, and if the board is unable, approve his letter of appreciation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Did I hear an aye from you?
Oh,
He's
did
got
I-
to go on,
Okay.
does he know that he has to go on another committee, though?
I don't think he knows that. You're going to go. So Dan, did you want to talk about the fuel system, or would you like me to do that?
Go ahead, because I have a quick question.
Oh, okay.
Stick around, but you guys-
So Bill Kernan worked on, we have the, we had trouble with the pump with the fuel system at Public Works. It's been fixed, but the meter system on the pumps doesn't work and hasn't for several months. And so Bill was able to get 2 bid proposals to replace the meter, and you have those in your packet. One for $10,448 and then one for $16,500. And so we were, the the Infrastructure Committee recommended to award the contract to the total cost of $10,448. So my motion would be to award the contract for a K800 fuel management system for a total cost of $10,448, including installation to D&M Petroleum FPH tank installation and services. Whew, that's a name.
I'll second.
Moved and
No,
seconded.
I'm sorry. I need to make an amendment.
Oh, okay.
It's to D&M Petroleum.
Oh, okay, for
Yeah.
the FPH tank.
No, FPH tank and installation service, that's
This was
another
the other
company.
company.
That
That's
was
a
that was the
different-
second bid.
Oh, that was the second one. I'm so sorry.
That's all right, so I just would
Thank you
amend
for
that.
the friendly amendment.
You still second that, Nick?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right,
Nick.
any comments? Just curious, were they the same exact system that were bid, or were they 2 totally different systems? Quite a bit difference in the bid for,
Do you have the other one?
I don't have the other one. It's in the Public Works packet, but I think it was apples to apples.
That's all right, so,
Yeah.
has been our vendor for many, many years.
yeah. Well, maybe their familiarity with it, the other one figured it was going to be a lot of extra work, piping and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You get a new fuel monitoring system.
Do you want to do North Pleasant Street?
I can.
Okay.
So, the North Pleasant Sidewalk Project is one that starts at the Congo Church at Main Street and goes north to Methodist Lane on the west side of the street. That work is going to be new sidewalk, curb and gutter, and some new storm drainage. Currently, some of the runoff from Pleasant Street runs across the sidewalk and up against the side of the church, and has been doing that for decades. So we're going to fix that. And tie into their new sidewalks along with their project. So we put this project out to bid. We got 3 bids back. The low bidder was Masterson. They were at $142,380.90. There was a math error of 50 cents, and the committee decided to award them their 50 cents extra. So it comes down to $142,381.40. And the important part of this is that they hope to start in early June, so probably after the first full week of June, and then get the sidewalk and curbing done around the end of June, 1st of July. So that can get done before we get into the bridge projects with the loss of parking that'll happen from that. So that's the plan.
That's good.
It is good.
Is that that continuous curbing, or what are they?
It is. It's the machine rolled or
Yeah.
machine formed curbing.
Yeah, good.
Yep. And so along with the water that would go up against the church, some of those properties that are north of that, it goes down.
They have problems, they go down their backyards.
Down the driveways through the yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna catch that and
Great.
and take it over to existing storm sewer on Methodist Lane.
Okay,
So
So, can I make a motion?
please.
I'd like to make a motion to award the contract for the North Pleasant Street Infrastructure Improvement Project to low bidder Masterson Excavation for a total cost of $142,381.40.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
second project is the South Pleasant Street curb and sidewalk project. This is right where the temporary actor bus depot, whatever, is going to be there. So it's about 210 feet of sidewalk and curbing. Again, it will also be that machine-formed curb. So I kind of timed this so the bidders could bid on both of them, and if they did so, they could give us a combined price. So if they got the North Pleasant Street project, they could get the South Pleasant Street project. And then it works out that the machine-formed company can do one and then jump down to the other one. So it'll be one right after another. So when they're in town, they're here and get in and out.
Truck it in once.
Yeah, right, exactly. So economies of scale for that. So low bidder on that one was Masterson also for $25,704.00. And so that'll happen right after the North Pleasant Street project, so July-ish.
So I'll make a motion to award the contract for the South Pleasant Street Sidewalk and Infrastructure Improvement Project to low bidder Masterson Excavation for a total cost of $25,704.
You do it, you take it.
Moved and seconded by Farhad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, did we lose?
Nick?
Aye.
Okay. How about Merchants Row Waterline Project?
Okay. So I hope we've had a chance to look a little bit at this. Since the get-go, back in late 2013, 2014, the proposal has been by the engineers to put things in place where it was, where the water main where it was, and that was underneath the
railroad bed, and now that's going to be U-channel and tunnels that would be underneath the U-channel. And the water department, staff, myself, and a lot of folks just are not crazy about having a water main underneath that section of the track. So an option is to, what we want to look at, and that's what this proposal is, to see if we can come down North Pleasant Street or maybe even under the sidewalk of the green, or maybe even bore it. There's just a lot of questions that we need to sort out as to what's a better option than going underneath the railroad tracks. And so the state has told us that the cost of building that section under the tracks would be offset, it would offset the cost of any other option we pursue somewhere else, like South Pleasant Street, Court Square, east side, or west side. So the proposal, through the state, they asked us if we would go hire an independent engineering company, just because of federal highway rules about having two engineering companies in the same project. So we said, fine, we'll do that. I contacted Otter Creek Engineering, and they gave us a cost estimate for $1,000 to evaluate what the options are, and so we can move forward and have a communication with VHB and the state of what a different option is for that. So that's the request tonight, is to let's figure out what's a possibility.
Can I add to that? Is it okay? So there was a lot of discussion at Infrastructure Committee, and I just want to clarify that, one, we don't have to do anything to maintain water, correct? There's a little bit of work on Main Street to feed the Battelle block from the main on Main Street, correct?
Yeah, sure. Let me talk about that one. So the Battelle building, I won't keep it too long, but the Battelle building has a service line that comes off the back of this line that goes under the railroad tracks, and they've had some issues with that over the years. So what we can do is tap them off of their 6-inch line that comes off of Main Street, and then this can be abandoned. Helps them out immensely. I met with them last week. They can do some very easy internal plumbing changes, and actually they're kind of excited to do that because they want to expand the usability of some of their basement rooms. And so they were like, yeah, that works for us. So that's one thing that we can try to.
Right, so doing that change fixes the one service that's really affected by that under the track. And everything else is still serviced, but, so, sorry, Dan, if I'm,
right.
I just want to clarify, because
Sure.
this was something that was, so Kathleen, would you just scroll up a little bit? I always want to touch this screen. So,
like this?
Yeah. So Dan's proposal to do some water line rerouting here, which we could take project eligible funds to and put towards this, doesn't necessarily have to happen, but if we have the funds, do we use some of that money to do something here? And what was not necessarily clear to the committee was we don't know how much that would cost. So number one, what are the options? And number two, what do those options cost? And so if the project eligible funds, for instance, are $100,000, but this option costs $1 million, well, there's a big shortfall there, obviously. If this option costs $125,000 and we get $100,000, well, maybe it's something we consider doing. So we supported the $1,000 so that we would have more information to make a better decision. And I think without spending that $1,000, we don't have the information we need to make a decision there. And so I just wanted to clarify, because it took me a little while to get through it the other day too. So
You said it very well.
Right, so VHB staff is going to determine the cost of the under the railroad part of the water main.
Yeah.
And then we're going to determine the cost of another option, and then we're going to compare.
Yeah. And those funds, if we didn't do theirs, they would give us those funds toward another option. Is that what you're saying?
Say it again?
Under the under the rail,
right.
If we decided to do instead up about on South Pleasant Street, those funds could be used to use the new routing
Yes. The cost.
as an
of-
offset.
Yeah, basically, the cost to do this is project eligible. We were always going to do this section,
Yeah.
but the cost of this will be offset against whatever we come up with.
Yep, got it. So, pleasure of the board. Seems like a smart way to go.
I would make the motion to award a contract to Otter Creek Engineering for conceptual plan review and cost estimating for relocating the South Pleasant Street Merchants Row water main for a total cost of $1,000.
I'll second. Oh.
Hey.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Nick?
Good, thanks.
Nick?
Nick?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, one other question.
Yes.
Remind me how much it was costed to loop the water line on Exchange Street? I heard from a number of tenants down there, they were without water today.
To Round Shipman Hill, down at Happy
now,
Valley?
like when we have a water main break down there, if it was coming, if it was looped, seems like I've heard you talking about if that was looped, that everybody would still have service. And it's not looped now. If it shuts down, if you are working on one spot from there on out, it's shut down. Is that correct? So
Yeah.
how much would it cost to loop that?
The infamous loop, what it is from the corner of Exchange Street and Route 7, around Chipman Hill on Happy Valley.
Yep.
Down to the intersection of Happy Valley and, well, it actually would be north of that because the main comes about where Don Keeler lives.
Yeah, okay.
That far.
So how much is that?
It was maybe 15, 20 years ago, it was maybe about 370, 400,000.
We got a lot of commercial businesses down there. I know that's something you're
I
undertaking,
just-
and so
the
I just,
that-
it
it's
just
my
was fresh in
priority.
my mind today because I did hear from a couple different occupants down there.
We really got to get on that because it's not okay.
I was reminded today by Willie, when Vermont Hard Cider went to tap their water main, run a water main into the project, we approached them and said, just so you know, we have some leaks out here, and if you put a valve on here when you do this tap, the stuff that if there's any issues this way, you won't be affected. They said, nah, we don't want to do that. So how many times have they been affected now? 3 or 4? Shucks.
I mean, I really,
Business decision.
I think at our next infrastructure committee meeting, we need to talk about that and really, it's my priority at this point. It's not okay that those businesses are left hanging. So we have to, I know you applied for one planning grant.
Right.
So we need to, and we got denied that. So
Right.
we need to find some other ways to start looking at that.
I'm looking, okay, so the ones that did move there might have made a business decision, but if we're trying, from our business decision point of view, trying to attract and finish filling the park,
Right.
we're kind of maxed already because we're having a significant amount of issues, it seems, so.
Well, it's the looping plus it's replacing the Band-Aid area.
Right.
Is there an area that, because I didn't think that was that old, that was all done in my lifetime out there.
It was incorrectly.
It was incorrectly done.
Is that what happened?
Evidently, when the contractor did the work, it was for the industrial park, I believe. They
Yeah.
were not careful when they backfilled, or they would put
So there's large stones and
large
stuff in
stones
there?
on top, side,
There's
underneath.
boulders
Yep,
on the main.
Oh, really?
yeah. and
So that's what it is? It's
Yeah.
the vibration, the frost work in it? And
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
All
the
right.
It
majority
was
of
incorrectly
the issue.
installed.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I would just, well, I had you, I wanted to ask.
Sure.
It's a good question.
It was actually on my list for board member concerns that this get top priority going forward, so.
I would share that concern.
Yeah. It's just, it's become not okay, you know. We have to do something. We have to do it now.
Thanks, Dan.
And on that note, bye.
Kathleen?
Year-to-date budget report. I have a very unexciting budget report that all of my departments report that they are coming in on target, except for recreation, which is over expense. But they do have additional revenues coming in with some of those programs. So we're looking to the year end tight to the bottom line for our projections at this point.
You run an iron ship.
Well, those of us who do budgeting find that very exciting.
Can I just ask a question? And you might have addressed this in an earlier report, but why does the audit expense vary so much from year to year?
The timing of when it is done, as you may know, we've had a delay in the last couple of years with the actual completion of the audit. So I think we were doubled up this year on paying out.
How are we doing on the timing for this year?
We're getting very close.
Yay!
Which is exciting.
Okay.
And so we're hopeful to go into FY to be able to complete the FY17 one on a more timely basis.
Great.
And why are the sewer discharge permits so different from previous year?
There may be, I think there are a couple of new permittees out in the industrial park. There was some exchange. There was some changes with American Heart Cider.
Okay. Thank you.
Check warrants.
Did you guys already talk about this and I missed it because I was talking to Jim?
Oh, that's when you stepped out of the room?
Okay.
I'm good.
So, Farhad, take it away.
Thank you.
So I did look at the check warrants today on the expenditure. Everything looks to be in order. So I would like to make a motion to approve total expenditures in the amount of $667,234.81, consisting of $572,025.60 for accounts payable and $95,209.21 for payroll for the period of May 10th through 23rd of 2017.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Town managers report.
Just to note that an early draft of the agenda had approval of a contract for the archaeological resource assessment for the East Middlebury Flood Resiliency Project. Those bids came in well under $3,000, so I reviewed them and awarded the contract to the lowest responsive bidder who could complete the project in the most timely way. So it wasn't the lowest bidder, which was $1,900. It was the next lowest bidder for $2,200 that could complete the work in 3 weeks, getting us a good start on our engineering work later in the summer. And that's all I have to report.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. Board member concerns. We'll start with you, Farhad.
Just about that, the one I just signed with Asha Nelson. Terry she was wondering if it should have gone through the Park and Rec Committee instead of coming back to the town. She just made a comment when we went back, so I thought I would bring it to you.
So in the follow-up to that meeting, I included Terry on the email.
Yeah, she didn't mention that. She was aware of it.
Okay. Victor? Susan?
Don't have anything.
Laura?
I just have two things. Tomorrow is Safety Day at Mary Hogan School, and I think I mentioned this before. It's the first effort to really consolidate what they've usually done over different days, looking at bus safety, fire safety, things like that. So they've added bike safety, which we have been working with them on all year, but the kids will be rotating through different stations. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works tomorrow. And I mentioned that it has the opportunity to be expanded as a community event in the future. So, I mean, I have like 30 kindergartners for 20 minutes, so what do? You know, like during your, so what I'm emphasizing really is this message, which we've been talking about a lot, making eye contact and slowing down for a safer town. So all of us, with motorists, walkers at crosswalks and at driveways. So that's the message I hope that we all get. Again, you know, we have been trying to remind people over and over again, and especially as we go into this construction, that it's really important to slow down and make eye contact with each other so that we stay safe on our roads and sidewalks. So that's happening. So that's one thing. And relatedly, there have been a number of meetings with Middlebury Safe Routes and Local Motion and Town Planning about looking at these critical places that need infrastructure improvements. So we have the opportunity to do these kind of pop-up demonstration projects with Local Motion. They have like temporary materials that can have us experience what it would look like to have a bump out, for example, on Merchants Row in Main Street or Seymour Street, you know, looking at another critical area. Or we can look again at what we were just talking about tonight at Cross Street and South Pleasant Street, so that we can see what we could do to make these intersections safer. So that's in progress. So I wanted you to know about that. And then related to the Public Health and Safety Committee, we are going to be looking at the hazard mitigation plan that was drafted in 2014 and just update that. So that work will be done. We do have it, and I want viewers to know that we've done a lot of work in the town of Middlebury. We are trained well for dealing with hazards. You know, our fire department knows how to manage a spill, a hazardous spill of gas, whether it's a truck or a rail car. So, you know, we are there, you know, and we'll continue to refine the plan as we know what the drainage system is going to be at the rail bridge, you know, so that we know how to manage a spill in that location. So that work is happening. And that's, the hazard mitigation plan is different than the local emergency operations plan, which is more of a who to call when for what document that you signed and approved not that long ago. And they both complement each other. So just wanted you to know that that was happening, and for our viewers to know that we have good planning in progress.
Thank you, Laura.
I have a couple of things.
Yes, Heather.
First, we do have some openings on the Energy Committee, and one I wanted to ask Kathleen when you do your next, because I think in your last posting there wasn't anything about Energy Committee. So could we include that in the next? And then if anybody listening is interested, we have openings, so sign up, please.
And on Infrastructure Committee, too.
Yes, and yes.
Oh,
but I figured that would be more popular. And then,
you never know.
I can't seem to get anybody interested in Energy Committee, so anyway. Also, I wanted to thank everyone that participated in the Economic Health Task Force survey. We did get 295 responses in about 2 weeks, which I understand from those more experienced in marketing type stuff is a really good response. So I wanted to thank everybody and then just announce that SAS, is that saying it correctly? SAS Carey won the $50 Middlebury money certificate that we offered. So I contacted her earlier today and asked for permission to let everyone know that she won. So, and I wanted to say quickly, I was surprised that we had Officer Neela already, that she was on board, and I was very excited about that, and I just wondered if she could come visit us at a select board meeting sometime.
She is a delight in the little thing is going to officer training school in July.
Okay. So I just,
Oh, are you kidding me? You're talking about a dog?
Yeah, yeah, did you see the
Figured out
picture?
I'm a little slow on the uptake here.
so I just wanted to make a request
Did they
that,
got the picture?
because sometimes Chief
I
Hanley
missed it.
has other new officers attend and introduce themselves to the board. I wondered if she could be introduced to the board also.
It's on the screen.
Yeah, that would be great.
So,
Could I just ask a question about the survey? So, will there be kind of a report to give context to that so that we can understand how that fits into what work you're doing?
I hope so.
Okay.
We're working on it. So we
Okay.
just had the full committee look at the results last night, and we haven't really finalized that yet. So, yeah, I do hope that we'll eventually have the results ability to post so that people can get on and look at what the results were and see them. So we're still kind of evaluating the data and mulling it over and seeing what it tells us. So, but yes, I will share
Okay.
it.
No, I was just trying, I know that you'll share the results. I was looking at more the front of it, like the context for deciding on that survey among other surveys or such. So anyway, we can wait for the report. When
Yeah, so are you looking-
when you do give the report of the results, maybe that would be helpful to have the context for that.
So why we chose to do that survey? Is
Yes.
that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes.
Did you
And
go
then I
home
just
and come
had
back?
the water leak, but we
Just use
kind
my
of already.
computer. Okay.
Well, it's hard to do that myself. That's your comment letter, so I think I got it all right, so noise levels and everything.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep, right.
And the other thing was just the water leak, but we did already talk about that, so that was
Okay.
all I had.
Nick?
I just want to reiterate a little bit of what Laura said. Some of the recent meetings where we were talking about the bridge project, there were some comments that came out that may have led one to believe that we did not have well preparation for emergency services for whether it's a train derailment or a truck accident or whatever. And nothing could be further from the truth. We have an extremely professional group of emergency responders trained vigilantly on an ongoing basis, and they are well prepared for emergencies when they happen, and they will continue to do that. So I just want to emphasize that is one of the important services that the town provides, and they're top-notch professional providing it.
Thank you, Nick. The only thing I've got is just pointing out that we knew we had a good guy with Wayne Simmons heading up our project, and obviously he is recognized by V-Trans too because he was selected for promotion to a senior manager, and so part of his discussion with his superiors when they asked him if he would take the job is he would only do it if he could continue to follow through with this project because he feels he's given so many personal assurances to people that he wants to be there to see it through. So, really always a pleasure to see someone who is a high performer, who really is a solid guy, good to his word, be recognized, and I think he is easily deserving of the recognition based upon what we've seen, and it's nice. So he's going to stay with us, but he did get a promotion. So
That's nice.
can you take us into executive session? We
Love
have
to.
a need for executive session.